before the big three, in terms of Kyrie, KD, and Harden played their first game, everybody was wondering where Kyrie Irving was. When he spoke to the media, he talked about how he just needed a break and he was going through a lot of personal stuff. And I think the reaction from fans, they were very open to what Kyrie said. They were taking back what they said before about because everybody was being mean to Kyrie for the last couple of weeks.
Couple months.
So this question is just a question. It's not a basketball question. It's just a question about how the media handles professional athletes in terms of mental health. Do you think there is a certain disregard for that aspect in pro sports? We've seen some examples, PG in the bubble. We've seen
Kevin Love.
We've seen DeMar DeRozan speak out. Kyrie Irving is the latest, and when he was going through all this stuff, Stephen A. Smith called for his retirement. A lot of backlash headed his way, and the question is, do you think that the mainstream media is handling the mental health professional athletes poorly?
I just think the media forgets that these people are people. I think they forget that these are human beings that live an average life. I know they're rich and they have all this money, but I think media thinks just because they're $40 million that it's gonna wash away all that depression and all that. Like they're regular people like us. They go through day-to-day stuff like us. They have families. You know, why are you laughing?
I'm laughing because I remember when we were doing the bubble debate. And you were totally disregarding everything that you're saying right now.
Yeah, I was one of those people, but like the media be going crazy. I'm not a guy who's gonna go crazy. Like I'm going all of the media be violent, and I think they just forget that these people have families too, and they go through stuff. People die every day. Family members die, and we don't know what they go through on a day-to-day basis. So you can't just assume. And I get it from a standpoint like Kyrie, he's not as he doesn't communicate as well. But at the same time, he does have his own personal life, and just because he's a celebrity, it doesn't mean he has to share that personal life with us just because he's famous.
So for me, I think there are two blatant examples of this. One most recent, I actually count three. One most recent when Stephen A. Smith called for Kyrie to retire. Two, when Skip Bayless disregarded Dak Prescott's depression. And
wait, when did he do that?
He did it in the offseason.
I have the exact quote, actually.
Yes. And I think I have another one. Three, I was watching Old First Take and how they did a segment on name-calling professional athletes and how Skip and Stephen A., they didn't have a problem with name-calling because Skip used to call Chris Bosh Spice and all that stuff. They didn't have a problem with name-calling, but then when Jalen Rose talked about Skip Bayless's past, he took it very personal, and it was kind of a double standard, like, you name call these athletes every day, but as soon as somebody says something to you, now you're all butthurt about it.
What do you call them? Water Pistol Pete?
Water Pistol Pete Jr. So I think those are some instances that are we should look at to just showcase the contradiction between the media. And I hear this argument a lot, especially on Twitter and comments, is that the fans are the reason why these athletes are in the position that they're in. And I think that's wrong. I think that athletes are in that position because they're that good. We pay to see them because they are so good. We're not filling up seats at the rec leagues. Like, we're filling up seats at NBA stadiums because they are that good at what they do. So they make it. The media tries to act like it's a relationship that is one-sided and the athletes need the media. It's both. And I think in terms of the media, they need the athletes more. The only reason we're doing this podcast right now is because we talk about these athletes. The only reason First Take, Undisputed, whatever sports show you want to name has these ratings is because of these topics that these athletes give them the ammunition to talk about. So I think we have to be more wary of that. 35% of pro athletes suffer from some form of mental health crisis. And I don't think just in pro sports is not taken seriously, but I think as a whole in culture and society, it's not taken as serious.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's just a microcosm of society in general these days. And, people don't realize how much goes into it. Depression isn't just being sad. It's not like you can just make yourself be happy like when you're sad. It's a totally different thing. And you mentioned the Dak Prescott situation with Skip Bayless, and that to me was the most blatant and sad example of it. When Dak Prescott lost his brother last year, he said over the summer that he was dealing with depression and he was having a tough time working out, especially with COVID. And Skip Bayless said, I don't have any sympathy for him going public with, I got depressed. I suffered depression early in COVID to the point where I couldn't even go work out. Look, he's the quarterback of America's team. If you reveal publicly any little weakness, it can affect your team's ability to believe in you in the toughest spots, and it definitely could encourage others on the other side to come after you, which, one, you just don't get it. You just don't understand the big picture of life. Two, is ridiculous because if you remember, there was a game this season where Hayden Hurst, who was also a victim of mental health, came up to Dak Prescott after the game and commended him for speaking out about his dealings with depression. So it's just totally ridiculous, first of all. Second of all, I get it. It's a business. These guys are trying to make money. And when Stephen A. Smith says something like Kyrie should retire, he makes a lot of money off of that because it generates a lot of clicks. Even from people like us who are sitting here talking about it right now and how ridiculous it is. But like, we got to sit here and realize, like you said, these are real people. And it's just really sad that we forget that sometimes. And to me, the marquee quote to display that is from DeMar DeRozan. He said when he was going through his issues, I believe it was last year or 2 years ago.
When he got traded.
Yeah, he said, people say, what are you depressed about? You can buy anything you want. I wish everyone in the world was rich so they could realize money isn't everything. And like, take that in for a second. Rewind this, take that quote in for a second and realize that these are guys who are there. How are we going to say what things are like for them when they're telling you what things are like? We can't disregard that. And it's just really sad that, like you said, the people that the media count on to cover, like, these leagues would not run without these athletes. And like, their mental health, their life in general is just disregarded outside of the four lines of a basketball court.
You know, I think sometimes the media, they overlook how the players feel, and even like the schedule that they're put through, like 82 games. To be on a grind like that, night in, night out, practice, you're not seeing your family, that could get kind of exhausting. Like, you're on the road and you're a grown man, you got a family, you can't even see your kids, you can't take your son to school. You can't pick your daughter up from school. You can't take them to basketball practice because you got to go play a game at 8 o'clock at night. And, you know, I think, you know, money doesn't cure everything, like Jack said. But it's just definitely need to take it easy.
And especially in, like, I think the Western culture, I think I watched, I told you guys earlier, like a couple episodes ago, I watched the movie Soul.
He was crying
right?
and stuff?
Yes, at the end of the movie. I don't want to just plug it out of nowhere. I want to plug it in for a reason. I think what I got out of that movie, like a deeper message that I got from that movie, is that, especially in a Western society, I'm talking about the United States specifically, we live kind of in like a rat race. Everybody wants to be either one of these two things or both of these things. They either want to be rich, they want to be famous, or they want to be rich and famous. I think that personifies what people want to be, especially in this society. So I think people in that chase forget that our purpose is not to be whatever you think you want to be, but just to live and be present in what is there and what is life right now. I think the purpose of life is to live life. And we see a lot of times when people get to that stage that they always wanted to get to, they're not happy with it. And it's because that was never what was going to make you happy. What's going to make you happy is already there. You're just not looking at it directly.
It's about enjoying the process. Everybody says, you know, the process is more enjoyable than the goal, the finish line, because it's all about the emotions that you feel going through life and stuff like that. But, you know, this isn't even a mental health example, but last night on TNT, I'm sure you guys saw it. Donovan Mitchell goes off for 37 points, incredible game. And Shaq goes on and says right to his face, I was just talking about how, you know, I love your game, but I don't think you have what it takes to take it to the next level. What do you have to say to that? Like, is that good for the game? Is that good for your audience to see? Just your analysts belittling the players that they're covering? And it's just becoming like that's what it is now. And I love it, the Inside the NBA crew. I think they put together a really good product. Ernie Johnson is one of the best in the business at what he does. But, like, what do you serve to gain out of just straight up belittling players to their face? There's time for criticism. There's no question about it. And this podcast and sports media in general wouldn't exist without that. But Stuff like that. What do you gain out of belittling for no reason the guys that you're covering?
You know what that's an example of? That's an example of, let's say James Harden or whoever it is has a triple-double. And then like the first reply on Twitter is like, "You have no rings though." You know this. That's like the thing.
Yeah,
right?
that sounds like me though.
That's kind of what Shaq did. That's exactly what Shaq did. Oh, Donovan Mitchell had a good game. They're on a 7-game win streak. Oh, but you're not gonna win the finals, so this doesn't matter regardless.
I think in a situation like that, the only thing you can do, or the right thing to do, is to just praise him about his performance and how he willed his team to a win. I think if he lost, then I guess you could have snuck that in, but he won. He just had 37. He's been playing phenomenal. His team has been on a roll. Like, talk about that. Give him some flowers. Like, prop him on that. Shaq, we know you're a legend. We know you're one of the best all the time, but you don't need to hate and do that to a player who's just a young guy in this league that just wants respect from the legends.